a very quick initial introduction. We're going to hear from Mike Ackerman. Sorry, I've got the glasses problem that David had yesterday, but I'm going to correct my mistakes immediately rather than slowly. From Steve Ackerman on how we got Benedict Cumberbatch on a spaceship and how you could too. Steve's company, Something Else, came up with that rare thing, a video game without video. I'm going to leave you to explain, Steve.
Thank you very much. Oh, that was a weary, wasn't it? Good morning. That probably reflects the previous night. How delighted I am to have the 9:30 slot. Hands up if you have a hangover. Yeah. Actually, in line with that, a confession, which is more a reflection of my bad eyesight than anything. But it wasn't until last night and the drinks, which was a really sort of good evening. But wasn't until then. When I was sitting at the back yesterday, I saw Legend of Kremlin. I'm thinking, I've never heard of a game called that. What the hell is Legend of Kremlin? And then it was only last night, and it was only at the end of the drinks that I saw in the corner with the guys pouring out the vodka. If you weren't there last night, it's a drink. It isn't a game. So anyway, there's my confession. Okay, so if you've sneaked into the room because you're a big fan of the BBC show Sherlock and its star Benedict Cumberbatch, and you're thinking, God, has he gone into space? Here's the disclaimer, which is he hasn't actually gone into space. But we have created a game which featured his voice in space, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to just run you through what we think has been a really interesting story in terms of creating what we think is one of the first, if not the first, video game without video, an audio-only game. So we're not a traditional games company. It's probably my sort of second disclaimer. This is us, lots of people, but we would describe ourselves as a content company. We're just as adept at making TV and radio shows as well as interactive content, games and apps. And really what we do is work with broadcasters and brands and then deliver content for them on whatever platform's appropriate. So that's the sort of background in terms of who we are. Here's Benedict. So this is, if you haven't watched Sherlock on BBC, this is who he is. He's just been at the National as well, doing Frankenstein. Anyway, one of Britain's definite rising stars. And so I will tell you today how we put him into space. But first of all, I'm going to start here. The games that we created all center around what's called binaural audio. And if you don't know what that is, if you think of mono and then stereo and then 360-degree sound or surround sound, binaural is the next stage on from that. So binaural is in front, behind, left, right, and within a game, that obviously gives you an incredibly immersive sound experience if you're wearing headphones. So for a long time, we've done sound work in the game space, but actually more where it's sort of storytelling and narrative. So we were the ones who did the characterization and scripting behind Buzz. And someone reminded me yesterday, way back in the day, if you were really playing a while ago, you may remember You Don't Know Jack, and that was us in terms of the British version. So very familiar in terms of audio and gameplay and trying to bring these things together. And once we started discovering binaural in this world, we thought, well, this has got to form a really fantastic game experience. Except the problem was there's no engine, nothing had been created back-end wise to help create that experience. So that's what we did. We created the engine, and what that therefore allowed us to do within game is allow the experience of walking, of movement in relation to the sound. So within the game, you can walk to a sound, you can walk away from a sound, you can have sounds coming past you and in front of you in relation to the movement that you're dictating. So not because I'm on a vanity trip, just because it will be helpful to know in terms of people's level of understanding. Just give me a hands up if you're aware of or you've downloaded Papa Sangre or Nightjar. Okay, that's sort of fairly good. That's about a third. It was a vanity trip, actually. No, it wasn't. Okay, so apologies for those who sort of are really familiar with it, but I'm going to go on the level of obviously those who know very little. So the first game we created was Papa Sangre, and we brought this out at the very tail end of last year, beginning of this year. It was invested in by 4IP, which, for those who don't know, was the investment arm of Channel 4. They've now wound it up, but it was there to aid in innovation. They invested some money we invested some money in, and the first game was this. And it was the first video game with no video. And when we went to Apple and said, this is what we want to stick on the store, they said, yeah, we haven't seen anything like this before. And for those of you who've dealt with Apple, you'll know that they don't ever make promises, but they said, this is very interesting, we might put this on the front page. So that was already promising. The idea behind this game is it is a classic adventure game. You're stuck in the castle of an evil emperor, he's stolen your soul, and you've got to navigate through rooms to get out the castle and win your soul back. But how do you do that if there's no video? You do that completely through sound. So this is what the screen looks like. You use your fingers to do the walking. So you use your fingers to press on the left and right feet, and that is how you move through space. And the circular thing on the top is your navigation tool. So that gives you your sort of movement, and you can turn around. And that's all you see on the screen. So in terms of getting someone to play and introducing the concept to them, it's, once you see that, it's very, very easy to understand how it works. If you're still post-hangover feeling very, very confused about all this and thinking, what the hell is this bloke talking about? I'll make it even easier. So here's someone playing the game, and you can see this is literally what they're doing. This is the sound that they're hearing as they play. Bit of menace there. They're walking on some squeaky stuff. There's someone menacing in the background, a monster of some sort. They're going to die very soon, I can tell. They're walking as fast as they can. They've hit a wall. They need to turn around, turn around, turn around. The monster's coming. Anyway. There we go.
When you leave the loud bones, creep to safety.
Nothing like a good gory death at 9:45 in the morning. When you play that with headphones on, and it is incredibly immersive, and it really does create a whole world for you. There's the little voice you heard there is a little sort of fairy who whispers in your ear, helping you along, and obviously explaining in each room what it is you need to try and achieve. And actually, what was really interesting, as you would imagine, the sort of Twitter sphere went mad, and we were able to really sort of track how people were playing the game and what they were saying about it. And one comment that came up loads was, I love turning off the lights and playing this in the dark. You have to play this in the dark. Lots of comments about that, which was very interesting, because the sort of public service side angle for 4IP to invest into the game was that blind people could play it. It was tested with blind people in the playtesting phase, and the Royal Institute of the Blind then endorsed it as well. So fascinating that people who have sight, were then choosing to go down a route where they really were seeing just with their ears. So as I said, Apple hinted that they would give it support, and obviously, as anyone who's done an app knows, and lots of discussion about it yesterday, trying to break through that clutter in the App Store can be a nightmare. And so you need something to help you, and it certainly helps if you're chosen as Game of the Week, which we were in the UK, and if you get the UK, you pretty much get sort of 30 odd other countries as well. That has a fantastic effect. So Game of the Week, it was premium price, and I was really interested to hear the conversation going on yesterday, and particularly the debate at the end of the day, in terms of the future of the industry, and obviously lots of references throughout the day to other revenue sources and other routes, and whether it's Angry Birds or how many Angry Birds can there really be. But we went into Apple with this and they said, how much are you going to price it at? And we said, probably 99p, £1.99. And they said, you must be joking. This is a premium app. It needs to be more than the price of coffee. And when you think, well, okay, in that sense, okay. So we priced it at $3.99, which meant it was $5 in the States, $4.99 in the States. But it has done incredibly well. 50,000 plus downloads, and a whole load of goodwill, great publicity, brilliant reviews, lots of recognition. Awards are always nice. So if you're at the Developer Awards last month, then you would have seen Papa Sangre getting recognition. So that was Papa Sangre, but where does Benedict come into this? this is Jamie Oliver. I have no idea why he's in the middle of the countryside staring at a sausage. I equally have no idea why this is the front page of AMV's website. AMV is one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world, but in the country, if you don't know. So AMV saw Papa, and this is kind of something I really want to focus on, came to us. And again, I think in terms of talking about revenues and where, where revenues can be coming from the work we've done elsewhere in the content space, so especially in more traditional media and more recently in terms of online video, in that space, we've got a lot of experience of working with ad agencies and of ad agencies paying to create content. So not to create advertising, but to create content that has editorial value in some way for the audience. And AMV had seen Papa and came to us because they had this. It's not a condom. It's a chewing gum, believe it or not. This is the 5 gum. You will see it in your shops. I know you're probably all looking at this thinking, I've never heard of the 5 gum. It's one of those classic brands where now go into your shop, your local newsagent, it'll be on the front counter. There'll be loads of it because it doesn't sell very well. That's the whole reason why they came to us. So you never thought you were going to see an image of a chewing gum today looking like a condom, but you are, and there it is. And the 5 gum, made by Wrigley's, is a client of AMV, and the brand promise of the 5 gum is sensory experiences. So you can already see why Papa would be interesting for them. Yeah, you're right to laugh. It's a chewing gum, but this is the stuff advertising agencies come up with all the time. So they wanted to create a whole range of content applications that would reflect in terms of sensory experience, because obviously when you chew the chewing gum, you're, oh, wow, it's amazing. You get that sensory overload. So sound and the use of sound was very interesting for them. Here's Jamie Oliver again. He's still looking at the sausage. But I think what was really interesting was the mentality that they came in with it. As I said, we've worked with advertising agencies a lot, and I think if anybody here has had that experience of working with ad agencies, there aren't any ad agencies in the room, are there? Are there any ad agencies in the room? Okay, few. Right, then I can speak really honestly. You'll know if you've worked with ad agencies that they can be very challenging clients, particularly on the creative side, and particularly when you're looking at projects like creating apps or games, because frankly they just haven't done it very much. And we've had our fingers burnt many times where we've worked with agencies and creatives who've been to art school and live in Notting Hill come into the room wearing their shorts, even though it's in the middle of winter, because that's what creatives do. And they've got great experience of making, £5 million beautifully shot TV adverts. They have no experience of making games and apps, but they're the creatives. And it can be a very incredibly frustrating experience when you're trying to hold the hand of someone down a creative path and they think they know more than you do as the experts, but they're your clients, so you've got to be gentle with that. With these guys, it was very different. They came in and genuinely wanted to engage in this as a partnership in the creative sense, which was very interesting. And I'll show you why practically that then made a really big difference in terms of how the project evolved. So. Here's Benedict again. He doesn't have a sausage. He's still looking serious, though. The starting point for this project actually wasn't the talent. It was clearly the creative idea. And if we could start from the concept of Papa Sangri, they were able to, that was a fantastic kickoff point in terms of creatively, okay, we understand what the engine can do. We understand the concept of an audio-only game. Now where do we stick it? And lots of debate around that. Is it in the sewers of London? Are you on a runaway train? Ghost houses, all sorts of different concepts. But eventually we settled on probably what should have been the most obvious thing, seeing as we're talking about somewhere where you can't see, and that was space. Next is the talent, and again, if ever you've worked with really high-level talent, you'll know that there's only two routes to get talent. Talent like this. Either you wave ridiculously big checks in front of them, particularly if a brand is involved, because obviously as soon as you speak to the agent or the manager, they say, well, he's endorsing the brand, so he needs to get a really hefty fee for that. Either you wave a massive check, or you offer them something that is really challenging for them creatively. And thankfully, it wasn't the massive check route that Benedict wanted to go down. This is obviously a really interesting project for an actor to engage in. This is more than just a radio drama for him. This is for an actor really allowing himself to understand the mechanics of how a game comes into play. So Benedict came on board. The thing is stuck in space. I don't need to explain it because here's the trailer.
The Five Experience presents The Nightjar, featuring the voice of Benedict Cumberbatch.
You are on a dying spaceship. The crew abandoned you. Systems failing, everything pitch black. You can't see anything. You have to find your way to safety just by listening. Then your problems really start.
And yes, it is the same sticky, messy sound of death that you heard on Papa Sangre. So anyway, that's basically the game. You navigate through different levels. You remember the feet on Papa Sangre. Here's what the screen looks like on Nightjar. Same concept, obviously just executed in a different way. So here's a sense of the sort of thing you'll hear. So if you remember the fairy voice on Papa, Benedict basically plays that role in this. He's helping you along throughout the game, or is he? Evil laugh, wah ha 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 ha.
You're going to have to creep between them first, open the airlock door, then launch the life raft to blow them out into space. Can you do that? Yeah, you can. You need to hit 2 sensors to open the airlock. Come on.
So you get your instruction, you then start moving. So I mentioned earlier how by having the ad agency really engaged as partners, it makes a big difference. And obviously, again, in terms of trying to get through the clutter of how do you get your game known about, obviously the fantastic difference of having an ad agency on board is they want to shout about it, because the thing that they're really driven by is being able to show the client the metrics in terms of, we hit this many eyes and ears, and this is why, Mr. Wrigley's, it's worth you paying us millions, because look at the great work we've done for you. So the plus side of that is the support you get. These were full-page ads that were in places like Heat, aimed at the sort of demographic they were after, which was pretty much a 15 to 24 demographic, but really beautifully executed pieces of work. Very intentionally, the print is very small, so that you really have to. These are obviously. The first thing that catches your eye here actually isn't the detail about the game. It's just, oh, what's that? And then you engage in it. And they, again, remember, it's sensory experiences. So here's another one. But a real plus when you get that level of support, and the same in terms of this sort of thing, which was an advert that ran on Spotify.
The Nightjar, featuring the voice of Benedict Cumberbatch. Click on the banner to watch the trailer.
Listen, you're on the Nightjar. They've left you behind. I know you're confused, but if you want to live, you have to listen to me and do exactly what I tell you.
Attention. The Nightjar has been boarded. There are 2 complex life forms aboard this ship, of which one is human.
Tell me you're still with me.
Download free from the App Store now.
Do you know what? I've only just realised that. Obviously, I've spent a bit of time putting this together. I've only just realised how much death there is in this. It's too early in the morning for so much death. Anyway, a real plus there from the support, and actually a sort of a very minor but interesting side note in terms of, especially I think in terms of the debate yesterday. We do a lot of work in the radio space, and if you think the games industry is one step away, the radio industry is really fucked. Many years ago. That sort of advert would have been going on radio, and the money spent is now going on places like Spotify. Anyway, for us, more and more, because we're a content company, it's not just about creating the content, it's about driving audiences to whatever content we've created, and that was just as true for this. So about six, 7 weeks before the game actually launched, we launched a campaign on Twitter. We started bringing the whole world alive. This is Voice of Nightjar, so this is obviously the actual spaceship, but there were 2 other spaceships in circulation as well. And particularly, as you would expect, the Papa Sangre community was sort of follow us, and they started really picking up on this, and that then started spilling out into the sort of wider games world. So it really did build up a bit of a buzz amongst, you know, the kind of people you want to hit very, very quickly, who are going to talk a lot about the game. It meant they knew something was coming. There was lots of talk about those people who did Papa Sangre. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something else afoot, and there seems to be some spaceship or something, and it just created a bit of chat, which was really great. So the reaction was really good. Papa, as I said, got 50,000. This one has done 120,000 downloads in 8 weeks. Probably a big point of difference is it's free, but you know, as I said, our money has come from the agency, and I'll talk a bit about the funding behind that as well. Here's a photo that I just wanted to put up because you never thought you'd come here today and see a game, an iPhone, and a pack of condoms looking like chewing gum in the same picture. But you have. I've done it. There we are. There was literally no other reason to put that in there apart from that. I just thought I've got to put that in. So let's get on to some stats that hopefully just illuminate further the sort of success behind this. I'm very much going to compare apples and oranges in the sense of, again, the plus of working with an ad agency is they're obsessed about the stats in terms of what can they show the client it achieved. And obviously, their traditional metric for looking at these things is banner advertising. You know, so they're very conversant with banner advertising, what that should do. They have no idea how to measure this in terms of how successsul it was, in the sense of, yes, they've got the numbers of who downloaded it, but obviously trying to get the demographic information behind that is very tricky. So as I said, I'm going to slightly compare apples with oranges because I'm going to look at sort of some, you know, sort of banner equivalents and then try and translate that a little bit. Starting off first of all with the download numbers though, in terms of the App Store, most brand-funded apps, and you can find a fair number of them, normally do 1,000 or less. Apple will never release the figures, but the reason you can tell this is once you've done an app and you get into the top 100 listings, you obviously know what your own app is doing, and therefore you can figure out pretty much where what other people are doing. So normal brand-funded apps, less than 1,000, as I said, 120,000 for this in 8 weeks. So if you were in the world of banner advertising, you would expect a normal click-through rate of 0.3 to 0.6%. So you'd expect a very small amount of people to click on your banner, and it would normally be around that metric. Please, at the end, don't ask me how the hell do we come up with this, but AMV say for the same rate in terms of the amount of downloads and engagement with the game, you would have needed 50 million pairs of eyes to have the same sort of impact. And obviously, that's the sort of thing AMV are going to love in terms of going to Wrigley's and going, wow, look, this has really worked for you. If you click on a banner, the average time you'll stay after the click is 9 seconds. I would hazard a pretty strong guess in this room. It's about 0.3 seconds. But 9 seconds for most people. The equivalent in terms of the game was it achieved 2 years of gameplay in terms of how long people are obviously playing it and returning to it, which is really important. Obviously, for the game, we want engagement, but for the people paying for it, really important you're coming back to it. And I think sort of most important for them is the real money can't buy stuff. And I think really, really key is the fact that yes, it got on the front page of the App Store, which is genuine money can't buy value. I mean, this is the logo. This is the logo of Five Gum. So the fact that on the front page of the App Store, on Apple's App Store, is their logo, and it's sitting there week after week after week, and then 120,000 people download the game, and that logo's then on their screen, obviously, until they delete the game, is genuine, real money can't buy stuff for a brand. So you may think, well, this is all very well, but we're at a games conference, and I'm not that interested in advertising. I suppose the undercurrent of what I'm saying here is at a time when there's conversation yesterday about are we being entrepreneurial enough? Is there enough opportunity? Here is opportunity. You know, here are people who hold vast sums of money, and we are definitely seeing in the wider content space, increasingly money is shifting very, very quickly now away from traditional advertising into content. You can see that if you pick up your newspaper any day of the week. Radio revenues are down very significantly. You all have read about the problems that over the past 3, 4, 5 years that ITV have had and Channel 4 have had in terms of in terms of advertising. Money is moving very, very quickly, and so this sort of thing, I think you're going to start to see a lot more of, which is brands paying to provide something editorially to an audience. And if you've played the Nightjar, you'll know. I mean, you know, the Wrigley's. You know, you don't play the game and halfway through a message goes, "Chew the gum, chew the gum." You know, don't worry. It is not an advert. I can't stress that strongly enough. You know, go to the App Store and download it. Again, it's not an advert because it's free. But I think if you play the game, you'll understand this is an editorial proposition. This is a game. This is a genuine game rather than an advert. But the mechanics behind the deal are really interesting. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you the numbers, but there's 3 elements to the deal we did with them. Obviously, a production fee to make the game, clearly a license fee in terms of the engine behind the game. So they licensed it for 1 year in the UK only. And you know, that provoked quite an interesting discussion with them because as an agency, their remit is UK. So that's all they're interested in. We all know, though, and again, this came up yesterday in conversation, if you create something that's really, really interesting, virally, it's going to take off. And you can either ignore that or you can try and maximise upon that. And we said, literally, on day one, we said to the guys at AMV, you really should, you know, we understand that the marketing imperative is not beyond the UK, that the UK is where you want to centre the marketing campaign. But we said to them, you are going to create something that's going to have a really strong impact. We already know that because, obviously, of the way Papa Sangre had done. And we said to them, you really should think about charging for this outside of the UK. If you're going to make this great content, you may as well make it available because otherwise people are going to hack it anyway. You may as well make it available and try and create revenue from it. Tell an ad agency that they can earn money and give something back to the client. It blows their head off. It literally, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, they just couldn't get their head around it. To the extent that we're where are we? We're August, so we're about 4 or 5 months on from when they first walked in the door, and we're just finishing off a deal now to start selling it outside the UK. No one's going to buy a desert island from it. But the point is, if they can return a bit of investment either back to Wrigley's, if that's what they're going to do, I don't know, or even if money just sits in the agency, again, for them, that's a really new, innovative model and something that I think, for everyone here, throws up a really interesting possibility. The fact that you can achieve a marketing objective, you can create revenue, and you can achieve something creatively that's really beautiful and strong. So, I think in that sense, very interesting. And our mindset is definitely that we're going to see more and more of this going forward. We've done partnerships with all these people in the past six months on a similar level. Some of them we've taken a reduced production fee on. So we've said, okay, actually, our making time, we will charge you less for that in exchange for having a share of the revenues coming forward. I was hoping today I would be able to tell you about the thing that we're doing with Random House. I can, but I will physically have to kill everyone in the room, and then it will be far too much death for this time of the morning. But I think probably next week we're going to announce that we're doing the iPad version of a book that's coming out with a very, very famous author. And I can't tell you the book, but I can tell you the interesting thing there is they're thinking in very similar terms. So they're bringing out the book, obviously the physical book. They're not bringing out a Kindle version for the first 12 months, and they're not. There is no electronic version of the book that is coming out for 12 months. There is only the iPad version, which isn't the book as in all the text from the book because it's got lots of interactivity built around it. But worldwide, for the first 12 months, the only electronic iteration of this book will be the iPad version, and that's obviously being charged for, and we have a stake in those revenues. So I think, just reiterating that point, when you talk about where can potential future revenues come from, there is money out there. There are fantastic skills in this community, and I think I think money isn't necessarily something that has to always come directly from the consumer for the people working here. There are lots of people who want to engage with games. We know that because that horrible word gamification keeps getting thrown around all over the place. But lots of people want to engage with games, and I think that presents and throws up lots of revenue opportunities. So one final thing, which is what's the sort of next developments for the sort of engine and for audio-only gaming. I heard Tech City being mentioned yesterday a few times. We are one of those Silicon Roundabout companies. We call it Old Street, actually, but anyway. The government calls it Silicon Roundabout. David Cameron's really hot. In fact, I'll just hear, how are we doing for time? We're okay. All right. I'll just hear one really, really quick story. So, as you know, David Cameron, very, very keen on developing the sort of East London corridor from the Olympic Park through to Silicon Roundabout as a sort of real entrepreneurial zone for digital activity. And he sent out a delegation, people who literally work with him and closely with him, to come to companies in East London and just to chat about what do we want from the government, how can they help, what would we like to see. So they were touring six companies, and we were, the email came through, we'd like to come and visit you. Oh, great, this is very exciting. So suddenly, we're telling all our staff, clear your desk, tidy up your desk. No, really tidy up your desk. Come on. Let's, come on, everybody. They're all coming. Oh, this is very exciting. As directors, we're sitting down. We're mapping out the question. We've only got 20 minutes with these guys. Let's really make sure we get through to them the things that we need. This is our opportunity. This is really fantastic. The tea, the kettle's boiling. The cakes are ready. And then Rupert Murdoch decided to close down the News of the World. Literally. As the kettle was just bubbling up, so they didn't come. They had something better to do, which was to delete all the CCTV of Murdoch coming in the back door at Downing Street. Anyway, so the government. How did I get onto that? Oh yeah, so the government's very interested in this, and for those of you who know about Tech City, they're really developing the area, and the TSB fund. Again, many of you may well know the Technology Strategy Board have just delivered some grants in that space, and so we're one of the companies who've got one of the 100 grand grants that was talked about yesterday, and we've got it in relation to the engine here, and that's because of the next things we want to do with it. And if you go on YouTube, you can see a video that shows all this in quite entertaining fashion. But we want to link the engine in with GPS so that when you're physically moving in your bedroom or a field, you are physically moving in the game. Because linking in the engine with GPS isn't a very sexy title, we call it Big Field Mode instead. It certainly works with advertising agencies. They get very excited about it. So anyway, that's something we're looking to develop. And obviously, the other area where we're really starting to explore with this is licensing the engine out in terms of, okay, we've shown what can be done, but I think as someone said yesterday, sometimes it's just about creating something, showing what it can be done, and then saying to other people, okay, you've probably got better ideas than we've got. What else can happen with this? So that's really where it's moving forward to. Is it a one-off? Is it something that's sort of just come quickly and going to go again, or is it something that's got longer-term implications? I don't know, but I certainly think audio-only games is something that's been very underexplored. I think there's a huge amount of potential, and then combining this sort of quality of sound with obviously visual games, I think really does take, in terms of the sound quality, things to an ever-increasing level. So anyway, I've warbled on for enough. I haven't got any more Sounds of Death to play you, or Jamie Oliver sausage pictures. So at that point, I'll finish. Thank you very much.
Who wrote the script for the
Yeah. My colleague, who's our chief creative officer, was the sort of script executive, came up with the concept and the guidelines, and bizarrely, his brother, who happens to be a scriptwriter and who we've worked with many times over the years, a chap called Neil Bennon, was the scriptwriter.
Without giving away any trade secrets, in comparison with doing, let's say, a casual game, an app iPhone game, or even a relatively simple traditional physical or Steam downloaded game, what is the cost parameter for something like Papa Sangre? Is it bigger than a bread box? I mean, is it 100K? Is it $1 million, or is it more like 50K?
It's not $1 million, and it wasn't 50 either. Papa Sangre was in a way was the more expensive thing to do, because obviously we had to create the entire engine, and a lot of time had to go into that. I mean, far more than actually was spent, in the sense of, as I said, 4IP invested into it. So 4IP invested 50 grand. We invested pretty much a similar amount physically, in terms of physical cash, but actually in terms of time and hours, way more than that. I would say now, in terms of doing a Nightjar or something else, the cost to us is obviously a lot lower, because the engine is there now.
Two more quick questions. Can you port it to Android and or PC? And can you... I forgot the second question.
Maybe the second bit was or PC.
No, the second question is, have you considered licensing the engine?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. So that is the next phase, really, and that's part of what the TSB money will be spent on. I mean, in terms of marketing, to be honest, licensing the engine is a big thing we want to start doing. Clearly, as everyone here knows, that's kind of where that's a more profitable route.
Hi, Rob Crossley from Develop. Thanks very much for that talk. I thought it was really interesting.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if one of the things. But all the things you were talking about, are you sort of suggesting that micro studios and iPhone studios should perhaps spread their bets a bit more as well? So instead of just making iPhone games and things like that, talk to ad agencies, perhaps even license engines. So is that the sort of thing you're trying to encourage?
Well, that's definitely our mentality. I wouldn't be as arrogant to say to tell other people how they should run their businesses, but I, as I've said very clearly today, I do feel there are revenues that are out there and can be developed, and I certainly feel, there was a lot of talk about how games can integrate on so many different levels with everything that happens in the world, from education through to advertising through to all sorts of things. And so, in that sense, yes, there are revenues out there, and I think maybe we've been more adept at exploiting those because we're not a traditional or pure play games company. We are a games company, but we do a lot of other stuff as well, and I think that's probably made a big difference in terms of our mentality and our approach. But I think the bigger thing actually is partnerships. I think there is lots and lots of opportunity now for partnerships where, if you're prepared to take an element of the risk, a partner who might have a very strong, intellectual brand in some sense, is prepared to give you an element of the reward, and that's kind of the case that I was talking about with the book. The publisher, the author, is obviously far better known than we are. So to be able to sort of ride on the piggyback of that and say, okay, because we've done the work that's related to his book, we'll get a share in the revenues that come in from it. I think those sorts of partnerships are very, very exciting and are fairly untested at the current time. There is lots of room to experiment in those sorts of areas.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
One last one in.
Yeah. In designing something that's immersive, do you think the ears are the more powerful vehicle than the eyes?
Yes, without doubt. I think I think actually the imagination is the key, and you know, we all know, you know, anyone who's read a book and seen the film of the book knows that 9 times out of 10, the stronger experience is the book, because you've created your own pictures. Now, that's not to say that you can't create an incredibly immersive experience with fantastic graphics, and of course you can. But the imagination is a really powerful tool, and it's kind of the equivalent of when, I think it's the equivalent of, you know, when the iPhone came out and people marveled at the fact that you could basically customize your own screen. That's what an audio game is. You know, my pictures are different from your pictures, so I don't need someone to spoon feed me what they think the world looks like or the spaceship looks like. I'm creating my own pictures, and that is incredibly powerful and incredibly personalized.